whoa! And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. That's Tom Fornelli. That's a bearded Danny Cannell. And that's Ryan Wilson, NFL draft expert, CBS Sports with the First Pick podcast. We are going to be jumping into the 2025 NFL draft outlook with Ryan. But first, Danny.
What up, Gandalf?
We missed you. And anybody who's listening to this on wherever you get your podcast, youtube.com/cover3 is where you get the goods right now with our live update of Danny's Bo Nix beard. How we doing, man?
I am great. I'm a man of my word. I said I would grow a beard, so here it is, unveiled. I lied when I said I would struggle to grow one. It's been much faster than I expected, than anticipated. So this is the new look. This is what I'm going for. A lot of people did tweet some ZZ Top at me.
Right.
They know that I would look almost identical to ZZ Top.
ZZ Flop.
Yes. This thing is hot. Would this count? If I just wore this every Cover 3 podcast, would this count? Because this is sweat. I'm already sweating. It's probably because I'm still running a fever too, but I am sweating my butt off in this thing.
So do a big mouth. I want to see if it opens. Like
it does, but it doesn't like mimic. It's kind of cheap. It was Amazon out here, so it does have a little mouth.
Creepy. I like that.
Kind of muffled a little bit.
The company will only expense so much when it comes to a fake beard.
That's true.
Okay. Well, I'm glad.
Is that like an Amazon Essentials beard, or is that designer?
Holy cow! There is a little bit. There's a little bit of real growth.
Okay, so we are going to be growing it, right? I mean, that's the game plan. We'll see what happens.
Man, my word. I don't know. Bud. Do we have a lawyer? Do we have a lawyer, an expert opinion on? Is there any way I'm getting out of this? Is there any workarounds? Anything?
Did you float the one lawyer listener's idea in your household, and then how was that received?
To grow the hair, like I'll never shave anything again, so I can just grow out my hair, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Some hair,
certain hair
down there,
certain hairs.
That could be good right now. Like we're in the hey, you look kind of hot right now. Like while the stubble, she likes the stubble. It's a longer beard. By the way, I didn't know Ryan. I forgot he was bearded. So like everybody around here is bearded.
Yeah.
You know? So I'll just let it go.
We're manly men with manly facial hair.
That's right. Hey, can I tell a quick story as it relates to Danny?
100%.
So Danny, a few years ago, in terms of you trying to moonwalk out of this bet, I bet John Breach that in no way, shape, or form would Ryan Finley beat the Steelers when he was with the Bengals as their 5th quarterback.
Yeah.
And I bet I would get a Ryan Finley tattoo. I lost that bet.
Yeah.
I got a tattoo. It wasn't a Ryan Finley, but a tattoo of Snoopy wearing a Bengals jersey. I've never gotten a tattoo prior to that. So you got to do a little something. I love Tom's. I think that's something you have to consider. But again, I understand your wife probably carries a little more weight than I do.
Yeah, but not that much more. I mean, she also wants me to be a man of my word, a man of principle. So
do the daughters know?
They've noticed. Yeah. I mean, yesterday they came out and they're like, Dad, you're growing a beard? And I'm like, yeah. And they know the bet. They know. Yeah. So they're like, oh boy, they've seen me with it's probably been maybe since COVID. I grew out the hair and the beard, had it pretty long. I think everybody kind of let everything go then. I've had different times, but probably the longest I've ever gone, it's probably like 3 months, which is pretty good bearded growth for me, but never had it longer than 3 months. Thing I get, you guys with beards, all of you, do you guys not get beard itch? Like where you start itching?
Oh, you break through.
You do.
Yeah. It's like itchy, and then you like hit a point of no return where it's no longer itchy.
Well, maybe that's the problem. I just could never get past the point of no return. That I don't know if it's just for men, like that adds to the beard itch. I think it makes it even more significant. So we'll see.
We will continue to have Beard Watch 2K24 here all summer long on the Cover 3 podcast. We are going to get to NFL draft in just a little bit. One more thing, a little bit on the less serious note, but I'm
a little bit less serious than Daniel's beard talk. Like, do we need like the dramatic under hush tone music beneath, like the little piano playing to how seriously Danny's beard is?
I promise follow up on a story a nonsensical story that we have continued to follow, which is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl Golf Challenge. First we drafted who we were going to have in our foursome, and none of us took Mike Norvell. And dadgummit, the winning team was Mike Norvell paired with, are y'all ready for this? Urban Meyer. Mm-hmm. We specifically said we did not want to play with Urban Meyer, so I guess we missed out on winning money for charity. We did not pick Mike Norvell, which is apparently disrespectful. Their combined final team score was 44. Shane Beamer and Houston Nutt, two guys we definitely had on our list. Mm-hmm. They finished second place. Hugh Freeze, again, another one that we all had on our list, was paired up with Tom O'Brien. They finished tied for third. Kirby Smart and Tommy Tuberville were together. Okay. Dave Thorin and Steve Spurrier were paired together. They finished fifth place. And then Manny Diaz was near the bottom in the 12th place team. And then big surprise here, the double military gang, Jeff Monken and Paul Johnson, 11th place.
Wow. So I'm shocked by that.
Monken must have dragged Paul down.
Must have. Dan Lanning and Jim Grobe. It's so funny. The Oregon media asked Dan Lanning, how's your golf game heading into the spring game, knowing that this was coming up? He's like, it's not in good shape. So I wish I had known that before I was, picking up Dan Lanning. So I never saw it coming. I don't know about you guys, but I never saw the Urban Meyer, Mike Norvell partnership yielding such fruitful results.
I have.
We played with Mike, Danny, in the Citrus Bowl Classic not in his pairing, but we saw him hitting it. I think he's got a lot better. I think Urban Meyer has had a lot of time on his hands to get a lot better.
And Norvell's a good athlete. He did play receiver, and he's a good athlete, so you can figure it out. And I think Urban definitely had it. I talked to Rick Neuheisel, who was one of my guys that I did pick. He actually shot a 78 at Augusta 10 days ago, before this tournament. So I felt great about it. He said our guy Brent Key, who I also picked for to bring some life to the party. He said that was about all he was bringing to the party. I mean, and he said he loved playing with him, but he said, boy, he dragged their game down. It's a two-man scramble. And Rick said basically it was him versus everybody. It was just Brent Key was along for the ride.
From what I understand, Norvell hit a couple timely shots, and Urban Meyer hit a lot of really good shots, and that's how you win a golf tournament right there.
Yeah, I have a subscription to Golf Magazine that comes with my USGA membership, and the new issue came yesterday. And who's the interview with at the very back page that they do the celebrity interview about their golf game? Urban Meyer. If only that magazine had come a week ago, I would have known, because he's got I can't remember, but he's got a pretty low handicap.
I guess he's probably playing near wherever closest place to his pint house, right?
Is he at Brady Quinn's tournament
at Muirfield? Yeah, he probably is. I'm sure he's got a membership there.
Yeah, if you hadn't hung out at Brady's golf tournament for too long, you could have seen Ryan's tattoo. He got it at Nashville weekend.
Yes, sir.
Is that not off limits? Okay.
What? No, he got hung up with travel. It was a travel thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the golf tournament ran long.
Second word, doing some work, and then hung up. All right.
So on the agenda for tomorrow, we are going to dig into some of that reporting around the SEC and the Big Ten's proposal for a settlement with House. So get billable hours ready. Now, also tomorrow, we'll do a little bit more of a player-by-player transfer portal, buzz and recap the transfer portal closing yesterday. Bud, could you just remind the audience of sort of where we're at in that transfer portal process and sort of what we're keeping an eye on here in the next, 48 hours or so?
Sure. So if you are an undergraduate transfer, meaning you don't have a degree, it is too late for you to put your name in the portal now. However, as long as you put it in by last night, your school still has 48 hours as a cooling off period to submit your name for paperwork. So we should know all of the undergraduate transfers with almost no exceptions by Friday. And I think we're going to know almost all of them today because most schools aren't going to hold this stuff for 48, but a couple probably will for various reasons. If you're a graduate transfer, the NCAA, in all of its infinite wisdom, decided that you need one extra day, literally. Today,
it's a reward.
I don't get this. Remember how you used to have till the end of summer, and now they're like, nope, it's the same. Like, actually, we're not going to make it the same. We're going to make it one extra day. So you get one extra day. So technically, 48 hours after tonight, I guess in theory we could see like a grad transfer pop up on Monday, since they're not going to process stuff over the weekend because bankers' hours and stuff. But basically, like Chip's lighting situation, it's essentially lights out on entering the portal.
Yeah.
Overall, a very underwhelming portal season. I mean, some useful players, especially if you're like a mid to lower level P5 team. I think you can add some important pieces. We had like 3 or 4 good D tackles in there, almost no good offensive tackles, not a lot of impact at receiver at all. Not much.
Yeah, we will. We'll recap a lot of the portal classes, catch you up on some of the movement and the biggest names on Thursday's show before we dive into the big old bag of mail. But Ryan has put up with enough of our nonsense. Let's get to the business of the day. And coming up on the other side, 2024 NFL Draft is in the books. So Ryan helps us break down the 2025 NFL Draft outlook and what it means for college football. Next.
From the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, is there anyone stronger?
No.
Tougher?
No.
Hungrier?
Grapes was an interesting choice for someone who doesn't use fingers.
Knuckles, now streaming only on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast.
Oh, what were you doing during the break?
I was trying to set up my lights. I was trying to go natural lighting here, and I was trying to jump out and see if I could get it done. But hey, I bet you, watch this. Let's take a look at Ryan's mock draft. And Ryan, why don't you go ahead and run the audience through this?
Oh, great move. So yeah, you'll hear every single word of this, Chip. I say this every year, and no one listens, and that's okay because when they put it on the website, it does in fact say mock draft. But I call this an early watch list because full disclosure, I have not watched every single one of these players we're going to talk about. That's why I have you guys to lean on. But as long as we're calling a mock draft, as long as people are getting angry about it. And also, don't worry about the teams and the player because obviously we don't know what their needs are going to be. But I am interested to hear you guys' thoughts on Shedeur Sanders being at the top of this list. I thought he had a chance to be a first-round pick after the first month of last season before the wheels fell off and Colorado decided to play like a Division III team. So there's some interest there. Travis Hunter is intriguing because of the dual threat ability. He's probably a better defensive back now than wide receiver just because he's not as refined as a route runner. JT Tuimoloau, the Ohio State. I mean, this list is littered with Ohio State kids. I listened to the last podcast. You guys talked about all the Ohio State players who did not get drafted. And Cam Ward, I think, and you guys would know better than I do, I think he had an opportunity perhaps to go to Ohio State. He's certainly better than Will Howard in my mind, but he goes to Miami and perhaps gives them a chance to compete there. So I'll turn over to you guys. Any thoughts of the top 10? Anything that makes you extremely angry or less so?
I mean, I think Shedeur is a lock to go number 1 overall.
Are you serious, Tom? Or are you kidding?
I am
He's
very
kidding.
much kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's where it starts, right? I mean, the conversation has to start with Shedeur. What is the feedback that you are getting? Like, what informs you Shedeur Sanders number 1 overall pick? What do you like about that?
So last fall, I called a couple scouts who are on the West Coast and just asked them, and their response was, "Yeah, maybe we'll see. It's early. It's September/October." And then, things went sideways for Colorado, and then Danny got involved with the Sanders family, and then Shedeur returned to school, and now there's all this other nonsense going on with Shedeur saying things on Twitter. I don't know. It's a lot, right? And like the stuff you want to talk about with Caleb Williams being different, that's a whole other galaxy than what we're dealing with Shedeur and all the silliness around him. Like, I don't care that Caleb paints his nails. I don't care that he cried after they lost the game in the stands with his mom. His dad maybe is an issue, but that's different. And also, by the way, Caleb is a lot better than Shedeur. So as I was putting this list together, and again, it's more watch list than mock draft, but these are conversations that I'm sure we'll be having over the summer. I thought Shedeur was a lot better last year at Colorado than what I remember watching at Jackson State. Like, I was impressed with, I thought he was a better athlete. I thought he threw the ball with more touch than I had back there. It looked like he was the Colorado version of Spencer Rattler with all the sacks he took. And I appreciated his toughness. All the other stuff, that's what you're going to have to sort through. And if you told me he was a 3rd-round pick 12 months from now, I would believe you, unless it's Danny, because Danny will be getting a tattoo if he brings something about Shedeur, but everyone else, I believe. But this was just a starting point, and I wanted to hear people's thoughts about Shedeur and even Travis. I think Travis may end up being a better football player just because of the versatility. But It's a jumping off point for people to be angry at me on Twitter.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 5 pick. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the 3rd round pick. I think that's kind of where we are right now. I think there's some people that really like him. I wasn't sold on what he had done at Jackson State. Would it translate at a Power 5 level on a pretty bad team? I mean, he still played really well despite being under all that pressure, still made good decisions with the football. But, like, I don't know if he has the top-tier arm strength that's really going to wow scouts. I don't know if he's got elite speed that's going to wow scouts. But I think he's got really good traits. So how do you elevate yourself from good to great? You continue to do what you did this year. And then I would put that same category as a Bo Nix or potentially, I don't know, JJ might have elite skills, but I'd say it's similar. And I was just texting before with Nicole Auerbach at The Athletic. She saw, I tweeted at Dion about this latest, beef that they're having with all of X. And I'm like, think about, because I think Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, and Bo Nix all got overdrafted, right? And Penix is one. I like Penix a lot. Bad, you can argue about the Falcons taking him. But why do we think they got drafted so high? Go read the piece from Albert Breer that he put down. And like the teams raved about the intangibles. JJ McCarthy's a leader. He's won everywhere he's been. His teammates love him. Bo Nix is a leader, and he's so mature, and he's married, and he does all the right things, and he shows up with the tape in his backpack. We can get into that. But, he's just a football guy through and through, and Penix is mature, and he's played great, and his teammates love him. Like, those guys impressed because, yes, what they had done on field, but teams care about what you are off the field. And if Shedeur, and I don't care about his brothers, and I don't care even what Deion's doing, but what is Shedeur doing? And I think he's damaging his draft stock by taking cheap shots at, former guys that played before him. And just like it diminishes him. I think it's below him. And somebody inside his circle, you feel like should step up and say, look, man, you're not doing yourself any good. Just go back to being a ball player. Like, just go back to balling. You could still have your YouTube show and you can still do all the things that today's player does, but you're burning a lot of bridges. And I think it's a bad look. And I think it potentially is damaging his draft stock. And when I say somebody should step up, I feel like it should be his dad, but his dad's doing the exact same thing. Like, his dad's mixing it up on X as well. So that's what I worry about. Can he impress on the field? Absolutely. I think he's got to do some image rehab off the field and explain himself as why he's lowering himself to getting into Twitter spats with people and calling out former players.
Is QB the one position where we care about character in the league?
Yes.
No, because of the leadership aspect. Yeah, I'm asking Ryan because there's definitely a lot of guys that get drafted that do a lot worse stuff than Shedeur smack talking a guy who actually ended up being an FCS All-American and 100% would have played for Colorado last year. Like, that kid was way better than some of the guys that Colorado was running out there when they realized they didn't have any good depth by the end of the season. But that's kind of I don't remember him. He was mid. I guess it's hard to remember somebody who's mid because the whole team was mid. Do NFL? I don't know if I see him being so talented that the teams are just going to overlook the baggage. But maybe I'd be wrong because he clearly did take a big jump going from Jackson State to Colorado in terms of performance. I think the arm got a lot stronger. If you remember him as a recruit, he's way bigger than he was back then. I think he's a lot better, than he was 18 months ago. I think Tom's article nailed it, right? Dead last in the Power 5 in pressures per sack. Is that because he doesn't want to hurt his completion percentage and his QBR? Or does he really just have an inability to play with pressure and avoid pressure? Because if it's the latter, NFL teams now care about that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Tom, let me ask you this. What does J.J. McCarthy look like behind that Colorado offensive line?
He gets the ball out.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think Shedeur holds it way long.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree he tries to do too much. I won't push back on that. I think the one thing I would rebut Danny's points, I agree with 100%. But I remember watching in the fall thinking, okay, Shedeur's getting his butt kicked every play virtually, but he's not getting up. He's not ranting and raving. He's not pointing fingers, which I, on some level, appreciated. But all the other stuff I could do without.
And to your question about character, I mean, there were a lot of questions about Johnny Manziel. Still was a first-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
To a lesser, different kind of, because that was pretty serious stuff that was, a lot of people had rumors about. Josh Rosen, I did not like him, like from a personality standpoint, thought he was weird and kind of like didn't love his leadership traits. He still got drafted. Didn't work, but he still got drafted, in the first round. So doesn't mean it can devastate you, but your talent has to be such that they're willing to say, all right, we can get past it. And that's probably where Shedeur is. That's why I'd probably lean to somewhere in the back end of the first round. Like if you said right now, where do you think he goes? But we'll see. I think that's the sad part, is that he probably could, if he got it right and handled himself the way that like the NFL teams want to, then he could be like a slam dunk top 5 pick.
My thing with Shedeur as a prospect is, first of all, the off-field stuff. The NFL teams do care about some really stupid stuff. So his dad's going to have an impact. Like some teams will avoid him just because they don't want to deal with Dion being all public with all his thoughts about what the team is doing and what his son is doing for them. So that will scare some teams away. But as far as the prospect, and I think this kind of goes in line with the entire quarterback class for next year. Like when you're thinking of a quarterback that's going to go first overall, they might not be perfect, but they have an elite trait or two. To me, Shedeur doesn't have a single elite trait. Like he's very good, but he doesn't have elite arm strength. He doesn't, it's just, he doesn't have elite size. He doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have that one thing to hang your head on. He's just a very solid guy for the most part across the board. So for me, that's why I don't think he's going to be the first overall. But at the same time, NFL teams very much overvalue quarterbacks in the draft, and they take them way too early. So if it only takes one team to fall in love. Like that's how Michael Penix ends up in Atlanta.
To bring it back to Colorado and like keeping it on college real quick before you jump back on the draft. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it is starting to have some real implications in recruiting. The mother of the number one receiver recruit in the country this morning tweeted, "Wow, this is beyond disgusting. This is how leaders of a team behave. This is what the University of Colorado promotes," and she does like the barfing emoji. "I'm so blessed my son conducts himself as a professional, doesn't bully his teammates or put down other players. I hope recruits are watching this because all the kids are having the same experience is not a coincidence. I'm starting to get a clearer picture of the atmosphere there, and it hurts my heart." So she noticed.
Ryan, you missed a mega opportunity though, because you have a team that drafted a quarterback where I think their owner would look past a lot of these issues. You had the wrong quarterback going to the Dallas Cowboys and you could have had a package deal. You could predicted it all. Dion going back to coach for Jerry, bringing his son with him. I mean, it's all the dominoes are falling in line. Here it comes.
I will give you credit going forward when I steal that, but I will acknowledge that Danny Cannell was the originator of that idea, because that does make too much sense It also proves we're in a simulation, but that's another conversation.
Yes, that too.
All right. So what Ryan, you mentioned, you've got Carson Beck and Cameron Ward. You said a word about them. You've got Quinn Ewers going at 12. And then I guess Jalen Milroe, as Danny just mentioned, going down in the mid-20s. Tom said, what about quarterbacks? Like, what do they have that makes them special? Do you think this is a special quarterback class?
I think Carson Beck probably is the best quarterback that I don't know anything about his off-field. I'm just assuming he's a good kid based on just having not heard anything. So I think Carson Beck is probably the cleanest, quote unquote. I think the issue with Quinn Ewers, and maybe you guys may have been talking about this on the podcast, but I heard somewhere when he stands next to Arch Manning, it looks like a little boy. It looks like the Derrick Henry Ingram picture, the Mark Ingram picture. So, there's the issue of staying healthy because Quinn Ewers has struggled with that. Jalen Milroe, Tom, I'll ask you because you were very deadpan. I can never tell if you're serious or not. But last year in January during the playoff game, Alabama, Michigan, I said to myself, I didn't say this out loud because I don't want there to be DK receipts on this, but I said 5 years from now, could Jalen Milroe be a better quarterback in the NFL than JJ McCarthy? Like, I think if he continues to make progress, especially now that Kalen DeBoer is there, I think he has a chance. He made huge strides from the first half of the season. He was unwatchable, and I thought he got a lot better. Yeah. Now, I heard that he's being pushed by one of the backups there in the spring game, so that's a concern. Yeah. But assuming he continues along the trajectory, is it outrageous to think that he could be a good NFL quarterback?
Outrageous? No, but I think there's a lot of work left to do.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
You said he got better as the year went on, but I do think that there really is no second read in Jalen's in his bag right now. It's if the first read's not there, and the first read is usually a deep shot. If that's not there, he tends to take off pretty quickly. And like when the pocket, if there starts to be any kind of pressure collapsing, he's not moving around in the pocket to try to avoid it as much as he's just looking for a place to run to get away from it. And those are things that, yeah, he certainly needs to improve at. He needs to improve it. And from what I've seen, his accuracy on anything underneath 10 to 15 yards, like anything close to the line of scrimmage, he really struggles with. I think he struggles from throwing in the pocket on shorter stuff too. So that is the one thing, like with DeBoer coming in there, and we've seen the work DeBoer has done with quarterbacks at multiple stops. I think that could be great for Milroe's, career, possibly as far as his development and becoming an NFL guy. What I've seen so far, to me, is not an NFL quarterback.
I agree with that. I think they're going to run the hell out of him, by the way. Like, if you look at what DeBoer has done, if he has a really mobile quarterback, they will run him into the ground. I don't mean as a negative. I mean, like DeBoer has had the quarterback be his leading rusher or like damn near it with over 1,000 yards several times in the last decade. So I don't think they're going to come out and run the Michael Penix, Adunze, McMillan, Polk offense year one in Tuscaloosa if he's the guy. I think they're going to really lean on a huge offensive line and run the crap out of him.
People are going to love him. I'll say that. Like from the interview process, I don't know if you heard the Terrion Arnold story that he told about how when he was benched, he stood up in front. That's the stuff like that scouts love and coaches love to hear. He's got to take a step forward. I think that determines how far Bama goes this season. As a prospect, like skill set wise, I mean, Anthony Richardson did not look great in a college system, never even really saw improvement. He was just so freakishly talented with a cannon for an arm, a body that, looks like a Greek god, and he could run, sub 4.5. I didn't even run 4.5 something. But Milroe as a just raw prospect, is he a mini version of that? Is he not? Because we know he can throw the deep ball. That's all we've raved about is he needs to develop that shorter mid-range pass game. But if he does, that's where I still think like teams are more willing to take quarterbacks that they see as projects. And I do think he'll improve with DeBoer.
I will give you a name at quarterback that I actually bet on FanDuel and DraftKings over the weekend. That nobody has. Like, and by the way, for the people in the chat asking, like, who is Ryan? Ryan got 14 out of 32 right last year, and he goes first. Like, I'm not saying anybody else copies each other, but Ryan ain't copying nobody because he actually has, like, he's got the guts to put his stuff out there first, and that's not easy. Like, progressively, these seem to get real similar within a week for everybody else that releases after. I don't know how that happens, but like I do chart it. And so, like, yeah, he's probably going to have some misses in this, but he's probably also going to have some early hits. And it ain't easy to go first, like that early, as somebody who covers the draft have to, flip around. But nobody, not Ryan, not Yahoo, ESPN, The Athletic, has this guy listed. I bet Garrett Nussmeier. Number one overall over the weekend, 50-1 and 40-1. And if you watch him, like, I think he's really smart. I know for a fact that multiple teams tried to tamper him over the last couple of years, and LSU has paid up to keep him in Baton Rouge. They believe he's the heir apparent. I think he's got a much better arm than Shedeur or Carson Beck, like a lot better. I think his mobility is pretty good, and he carved Wisconsin in that bowl game. And I think I would rather have him over Shedeur based on what I've seen so far, upside-wise. Now, Shedeur's floor is higher because I haven't seen enough of Nuss, but in a year where I don't think there's any truly special quarterback prospects, I could see a guy starting for 1 year and then jumping.
Two other
shout out to Max in the chat. He said the 2025 class is a bunch of Bo Nix. I'm like, well, we got 6 first rounders again. Here we go.
Also, his dad was an NFL OC. Like, you don't think that kid's going to do well on the whiteboard and like when
Nuss's boy. Nuss's boy. Yeah, that's it.
And he's big.
Two more quarterbacks, actually, both in the artist formerly known as the SEC West. What did you put any thought, Ryan, to Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss? And then I'll go ahead and give you the other one too. Texas A&M's Connor Wegman, who will be draft eligible, and if he can stay healthy for a whole year, might be garnering some attention. Those two quarterbacks on your board or on your radar at all?
I haven't watched Connor Wegman yet. I did watch Jackson Dart a good bit last year, and I thought he was probably he come out as I think I had him as a late day 2, early day 3 guy. But again, that's back in October, November, December before people start really having conversations about these players. Obviously, I like the athleticism. I thought he did some good things. I can't remember the game I watched. He got hurt in that game and came back in. He's obviously tough as nails, and the athleticism there. But I'll put him on the list for summer scouting, which we'll do on the old podcast too. But yeah, no, he gets consideration, just not in the first round, not yet anyway.
What
about Cam Ward? I mean, he was the hottest sought after one. He declared for the draft, right? He said he was going to come out, flirted with it, probably more of a leverage play. He goes to Miami. If he balls out for the Hurricanes, he's listed here. A site I'm looking at says 6'2". I mean, I was 6'5" in high school, so we got to take all that with a grain of salt. What about a player like him? He's pretty electric. Do you think he could play himself into this conversation?
Ryan's got him at 9.
Oh, he does.
I think he's a first-round pick. As we sit here 12 months out, he got better each and every year. He came from, I can never remember the name of the school.
Incarnate Word.
Incarnate Word. Thank you. He came there, and then year one at Washington State, he was a roller coaster ride, some really high highs and some lows, and that wasn't necessarily unexpected. I thought he got better a lot last year. He makes some tough throws. He throws with anticipation. He has a pretty good arm. All the things that you're looking for. And, Tom was talking about Milrose, a one read and go guy. I got the sense that it felt like Cam got better at staying in the pocket, although he sometimes stayed in the pocket too long, I thought, and then trying to get through those reads. So he does all the things you want. And if he's that sought after in terms of NIL stuff, the translation is that he'll probably have an opportunity to get drafted pretty high if he builds on that at the U.
So grammar question. Shouldn't it be Word incarnate?
We didn't have a QB go between 15 and 150. Like, would Ward have been the guy that would have gone in one of the middle rounds, you think, if he had come out?
Yeah, I think so. That's a great call. It feels like he would have been a day 2 guy. And the Spencer Rattler thing is sort of weird. He's undersized. He ran the 4.95. And Ian Rappaport said this during the Saturday day 3 coverage, that teams couldn't get over the documentary when he was 17, which is sort of BS. But I mean, it is what it is. You can't undo that. But it feels like he's changed. We talked to him a little bit at the combine, and he goes out of his way to admit that he was wrong and sort of owns up to it. And he feels like, in a few minute conversation, like he's more mature than he was when he was 17. But again, I say all the time, when I was 17, I was all up to all sorts of nonsense, but there was no internet back then. So, and no one cared who I was. So those two things combined allowed me to slip through the cracks.
I will say the thing about the reaction to that documentary and the way Spencer Rattler was on it, and it doesn't, he has changed. It's just, people would say like, well, he was 17. We were all that way when he was 17. There were like 15 other kids on that documentary over the years. None of them were like Spencer Rattler. So, I mean, it's something that I feel like is worth pointing out.
There was one.
Tate Martell. Yeah, Tate Martell and Spencer Rattler stood out as kind of the yeah.
But I remember watching it and being blown away with like Jake Fromm, Justin Fields. Like there were other guys who were really impressive and like showed you really above average maturity for a 17 or 18-year-old. So I do think it's just the reality. Like, is it fair? Probably not. But they're going to go. I mean, they do go back and talk to high school coaches. They'll go back and talk to high school teachers. They want to find out. If they're willing to invest tens of millions of dollars in you, they want to find out every aspect of who you are as a person. They'll go all the way back to find out.
Well, as Bud mentioned, Ryan is the first one. He throws it out there, and then the conversations get going. And some people pick, some people make different choices. We've cobbled together a lot of information from all across the industry. So let's take a look at places where Ryan is higher or lower than the other mock drafts out there. We'll get into all that and more next.
Europa League semi-finals on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount Plus. You were made for this.
In a classic example of what makes us different, makes us great, I spent yesterday cobbling together a lot of different names, also working on an assignment for CBSSports.com. It was just like all over the place, just names here, names there. I mean, it kind of looked a little crazy. Bud, on the other hand, has a color-coded spreadsheet that he has put together that has assembled everything and created an average draft ranking. Boy, this would have been a great tool to have yesterday. I'm very glad we have it for the show, though.
If I had Slack, I would have. I think I would have sent this.
Look, it
is Slack for like 48 hours because I had the old 24/7 login, and now they switched everybody to Paramount. But I had never signed out of Slack. So like for like a year and a half, I was still on the old Slack, and I, instead of hitting mute notifications, I accidentally hit sign out. So when I finally went to sign back in, I'm like, they're like, you don't have an account. I was like, well,
look, it was great for me to get this morning as I was fact checking all the work I did yesterday. All right, so at least I know I've got the assignment down. So, Bud,
I just like to imagine Maggie like asking Bud to do something yesterday, and he's like, "I'm sorry, babe, I'm busy right now working," and he's putting together this spreadsheet.
So, Bud, since you put in the hard work, I'll let you get first crack at this. A player or players that has stood out to you in terms of being, either Ryan's in and everyone else isn't, or everyone else is in and they're not. Just sort of some of those outliers or players that have differing opinions across the industry.
Sure. So, and I think it's important to note, like, nobody is 100% scouted all of these guys yet. I'm relatively sure. Like, I think it's really.
I have.
Well, okay. But Tom's rankings are secret for now. So, like, of these guys, is there one that, like, you've watched, since last week when you put this out, and you're like, all right, like, if I had to redo this today, this guy's in, and there's a guys like, all right, I'm not sold yet. So, among like the other guys' averages, and I think everybody has ones that they probably want back. So the LSU tackles, Will Campbell and Emory Jones, James Pierce, the defensive end at Tennessee, and Mason Graham, the D tackle at Michigan. Is there one that's like you're not sold on yet, or like I'm like, maybe I haven't watched certain positions yet,
I'll tell you exactly what happened, but because again, I've probably watched 10 to 12 of these guys, the quarterbacks and a lot of the Ohio State kids, and the rest, I just ask people that I trust, like, where should I work backwards from? And either they hate me because they left James Pierce off the list, because that was the immediate feedback. Where's James Pierce? And I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched James Pierce yet. I didn't watch a lot of Tennessee last year for obvious reasons. And James Pierce needs to be on this list. So he will be something that we talk about over the summer. But that was the initial response. James Pierce was frequently at the top of that list.
I will say, like, I like James Pierce. I am surprised that he's number one on so many mocks right now. Like, I didn't think he was that kind of like, obvious of a choice, but I don't know. Maybe he had a high PFF grade. For me, Bud, you mentioned like the thing about like the number one pick in next year's draft. You know who I got at 60-1?
Who?
Campbell?
Will Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Because like you look at we talked about the quarterback class next year, and I don't think it's a great class. And if there's ever a year where it's going to be like an edge or an OT going first overall, I think that's next year's draft. So I think Will Campbell's somebody who's a pretty safe bet on that one too.
Yeah, the LSU collection is pretty impressive when you've got Campbell, Emory Jones, as Bud mentioned. You've got Harold Perkins in there, Meyer as a dark horse. For a group that just sent Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and 2 first-round wide receivers to the NFL draft, like they're going to be coming with another handful of picks next year. I'm not sure. I'm not good at doing he's a first-round guy, he's a second-round guy, but I think I know a pro when I see one, and LSU's got some pros at the top of that roster.
Come on, make a guarantee. Say you'll shave your beard. Come on.
No.
This is where it happened. This is where it happened a year ago. Come on.
Is there – actually, that was a question that we got. Danny, is there here we go. Danny, do you want to make a Bo Nix bet on DJ Uyunglele?
There is no way.
I would love to be wrong on it.
There's no way DJ goes in the first round. I will say that.
There you go. No way.
I will. I don't want to say this. I'll grow my hair out and look like George Jefferson for 2 weeks if he goes in the first round.
Clip it.
There you go. Ryan Wilson will grow his hair out and, in his words, look like George Jefferson for 2 weeks if DJ Uyunglele plays himself into a first-round pick.
You know what DJ U's doing? He's moving on up the first round.
How many teams are going to be quarterback needy next year? Like, Ryan's probably thought about this. It's like, okay, like how many teams are probably in the quarterback market? Because it may just not be as many.
Well, the Bears won't be in the quarterback market for 50 years.
I just remember watching him at Clemson, obviously, then last year. And last year I was like, what is going on? Why is he so robotic? Why does the ball not come out on time? He looks the part. And I just couldn't get over the lack of development.
It's like a quicksand thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just it doesn't.
Everything he does is slow.
Yeah. The rest of the offense is like moving at a certain rhythm and speed. And then it's like, I don't know if it's a hesitation thing. I'm not good at understanding that part of it, but we've talked about that all the way back to the 2022 season. Remember, he like lit it up against Wake Forest in that win, and we were starting to think about him differently. Like, okay, here's the DJU bounce back. And then he kind of had some struggles mid-season and later season. And Danny, I remember that's what we were saying. We're like, why is everything just looking like a half a tick off?
Yeah, I'll be surprised. I would be surprised if he's a first-round pick as well. Can we go back to Travis Hunter? Sure. I don't know if we went deep enough on him. Receiver or DB? What do you think his best value is?
Feels like if you're playing him right away, DB, just because he's not as nuanced as a route runner, but he's so athletic, and we know he can make catches in terms of being a defensive back that can pull down interceptions as opposed to PBUs. That's not to say he can't do both. I just wonder if the getting him onto the field quicker makes sense as a defensive back, and then use him in specialty packages or whatever you want to call it. I would play him both ways, especially if you're the Carolina Panthers, for example, and you need help on both sides of the ball. Why not? What's the downside? I mean, you don't want him playing like Deion had him playing 120 snaps or whatever, but if you get 50 to 60 snaps out of him in specific packages, I don't know why you wouldn't do that, because he's the best athlete on the field.
Yeah, I'm curious about Travis. I think he has just insanely good traits in terms of like feel for the game, the ball skills. I think he is twitchy. I don't know what he's going to run. Like, certainly he's not slow, but Iamano ran by him for Stanford. Now, Colorado was also playing him like 135 snaps a game at altitude, which is malpractice in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. They do a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, like not understanding the overtime rules. So, ultimately, I think Travis in a zone scheme would be so nasty. Like that kid is one of the best I've ever seen at baiting guys, like his ability to read and kind of internalize and act upon it really quickly with route combos is really good. I think he's a lot better, in that. But with his ball skills, I think I would try to use him some on offense. I agree with Ryan. Like, it just makes sense. If you're taking him for like a pure corner, I don't know that I'm taking him over Will Johnson.
I'm not.
I was going to say,
Will Johnson's pretty good.
Where does Travis Hunter stand in the cornerback class? If we're going to treat him like a cornerback, where does he rank among the top corners in the 2025 class?
I'll defer to you guys, but I think that the answer is Will Johnson. I know Will Johnson just from watching the 57 other players that were drafted on that defense, and he always seemed to be like Mikey Sandersill is one of my favorite players in this draft class. Will Johnson looks nothing like Mikey Sandersill. That's 8th grade picture, and that's the day you get married picture. Yeah. So I think they're different in that sense, and he just felt different watching him, sort of side-eyeing him while watching the rest of that defense. So what you're getting in Will Johnson. I feel like it's less certain. That's sort of what Bud's getting at with what you're getting in Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I'm not at the stage where I'm like grading these guys as far as NFL draft is concerned, but I think for now, Will Johnson would probably be the number one corner on my board. I think I would have Denzel Burke in there. I'd have Benjamin Morrison. I think Travis Hunter's in there. So I think like right now he's top 5, but the other guys, I feel more confident in where they are already at the position. Whereas with Travis Hunter, I still think there's more projection there than I would. Like Will Johnson, I think could start on an NFL team this fall and he'd be fine. I think Travis Hunter would need has a little more learning to do about some of the nuances. But the good news for Travis is his head coach was pretty good at the position. So there's an idea there of what he can learn.
I'll throw one more name in the mix, and it's probably premature. A.Z. Thomas at Florida State, I think, has a chance to be the best player on the team. And that's a team that, like, I think Patrick Payton's going to be pretty confident Patrick Payton's like a top 2 round type guy, and I think he has a chance to be better than him this year. I know Florida State has had an enormous drop off in receiver play from year over year, but he dominated everybody this spring. So, and he's got the real size. His brother's an NFL guy, so you got the NFL pedigree stuff there. A.Z. Thomas is definitely a guy I think will shoot up these boards fast.
Another guy I really like too, like he might be more of a nickel at the next level, but Wisconsin's Ricardo Hallman is somebody who really stood out a lot when I watched Wisconsin last year.
All right. One player who, Ryan, you're high on, and I love it, is Alabama's Tyler Booker. What do you see out of him? And you mentioned, that Alabama offensive line in general. What do you see out of Booker in terms of being a prospect for the next level?
Again, I got to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of him. Just watching the rest of that offensive line play. So I talked to some folks that say he's legit. So I'll take their word on it. I have to go back and watch him over the summer, and that'll be a plan there. But I want to ask you guys. Speaking of Alabama offensive linemen, where do you come down? I know how I got a sense what Danny feels about the NIL and sort of the lawlessness of it, but of the offensive lineman who transferred,
Caden Proctor.
Yeah, and then was there for 2 weeks, and I don't know if things didn't work out with his girlfriend or what, but now he's back. How does that work in a locker room?
Well, I don't know.
He went on spring break with his Alabama teammates.
Yeah.
That was another part of the story was,
and that was the week before he made his decision to go back.
Right.
So like that there was some, recruiting. I'm sure there was some money that made the decision, what came into a factor as well. But I almost read into it, totally reading into it, that he went with his boys on spring break and they were like, hey, man, this new coaching staff, they're totally different. Like, you got to come back. It's totally different. We get to play music at practice now. It's a lot more energy. Like, it's not quite workmanlike. Like, come on back, man. We can run this thing back. And he said, okay. But if you believe people out of Iowa, they don't think he ever had any intention of going to Iowa. Like, that's kind of what Kirk Ferentz, I think Kirk Ferentz might even be on the record saying, I don't even know if he was intended to come back. He was just using us to get more money.
So how does it work in the Alabama locker room? Sounds like they welcomed him back with open arms, in the Iowa locker room.
I'm Jalen Milroe. I'm like, where are we going to dinner? Like, let's go. I'm buying.
That's what I'm saying. If he came back and I'm Jalen Milroe, I'm just hugging him when he walks in the door. Like,
all right.
Yeah, no, I don't have any character concerns about Caden Proctor based on the boomerang transfer. I think there's a lot of stuff that's going on there.
My concerns with Proctor are still he's got a lot of learning left to do. Like the raw clay is very much there, and the fact that, like we talked about this last year, the fact that he starting at left tackle on an Alabama team as a freshman tells you everything you need to know about the talent. But there are still some like kinks in his game that need to be ironed out. But I'm very confident he's going to do that. Especially because he's playing for a coaching staff that did just send a bunch of guys to the league this year.
You know what's amazing? 5 years ago, somebody who had transferred that wasn't a quarterback, and maybe that was a quarterback, would have been perceived as a negative from scouts. Like, oh, what's wrong? Why'd he quit? He didn't want to compete. I was probably guilty of saying that. And the way we've changed now is it's just totally normal, totally accepted. It's like, Now, what I think will be interesting is, does an NFL team see a player that's been to 4 different high schools and 4 different colleges? Does that start to become a red flag, potentially? Because we're starting to see some of those players crop up, here and there, so we'll see.
Who's a prospect? And I'll just say for the group, if we got the Nussmeier out here, who's a player who you think could be a riser? And like, you understand why they might not necessarily be, sitting in Ryan's first round mock, but you think that, given the way that everything could be coming together for them on the field in the fall, will be in the Ryan Wilson mock draft big board come January.
Thank you. Give me a break. Can I throw 2 names out there? I want to hear what you guys think. They're on the list. And last year, Bud, you or Tom pointed this out. I left JT Tuimoloau. I mispronounced his name. I apologize. I'll get it right. I left him off my list a year ago at this time. He wouldn't have been a first-round pick had he come out, and I think in part that's why he returned. He probably would have been an early second-round pick, but he's going to be in that conversation with his teammate Jack Sawyer. And the other guy is Judkins. What do you guys think about Judd? Does he have an opportunity to sneak his way into the first round? And the follow-up is, why did Rick Spielman convince Trevion Henderson to go back to school? And that's a rhetorical question.
I mean, on Judkins, is the NFL going to take backs in the first round anymore?
I saw Ollie Gordon on a couple mocks down in the 20s. That surprised me. I think Ollie Gordon is excellent. I don't know if Ollie Gordon, I don't know. I'm not good at evaluating running backs from the NFL perspective, but Ollie Gordon does not scream first round pick to me, but I could be very wrong about that.
So if they're Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs special, you get consideration. But even if Brooks had been healthy, he probably wasn't going in the first round, Jonathan Brooks.
It just all these teams seem to be like, hey, we need to draft for the guys that would cost us an arm and a leg in free agency if we don't have them. Like, if you don't have a tackle, you got to pay through the nose. If you don't have a receiver, you're paying $1 zillion to get a top one, in free agency. Positional like that, like there was no backers and no running backs drafted. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not in the first round.
No, I think either Junior or Edge Cooper was the first linebacker, both in round 2, if I recall.
Interesting.
I would say a couple of receivers I think could climb, and one I've mentioned down here, and we've been giving LSU a lot of love. Clearly, Ryan's never watched LSU in his life. He keeps leaving him out of his early mock draft. Kyron Lacey, I think, has a good shot of. I don't think he's not like a top 10 pick like I think Malik Neighbors was, but I think he could end up as a first-round pick, and I think he's going to put up numbers. And another one, a guy from out west who's making the move to the ACC this year at a Cal, J. Michael Sturdivant, I think is somebody who could kind of emerge on the scene as one of the best receivers. Like, I think people who watch know he's pretty good. I don't think nationally he's gotten a lot of recognition. I think maybe being in the ACC this year will help him get a little more exposure to the East Coast.
Buddy, they got Mikey Matthews back there too. I'm in on Cal.
Mhm.
And our guy Jaden Ott. I think that's throw them on the list. Big Oregon guy, big Texas guy, big Cal guy. Just getting my deck set.
You know, the question, it's Ryan probably can't answer because he already has him up there. But like Noah Thomas at A&M is a guy that really flashed last year, and like Ryan is way ahead of the pack on him. And like I could see it, but he should get a lot of target share this year for them. And he's like 6'6", 200, really big target. You know, physical, like plays big. That's one that like I don't think he's going to sneak into Ryan's board. He's already there, but I could see him going on other people's boards.
Is there a guy like a Roma Dunze? Because when I watched Roma Dunze in 2022, he looked not nearly as dynamic as he was throughout all last season. And I thought he was a fringe first rounder, and that was sort of the projection. The projection at the time was like N'Keal Harry, and he's now AJ Brown. So he's gone from N'Keal Harry to AJ Brown for me in terms of dynamism.
I'll take
as
it.
As Tom smiles gently. Is there a guy like that, whether it's wide receiver or somewhere else, that has a chance to make huge strides?
I think Isaiah Bond. I think he could have a huge year for Texas.
I was going to say Bond.
I think he could have a monster.
He upgraded quarterback tremendously.
Yeah.
From a passing standpoint, I think. And Isaiah Bond is going to run a stupid good time at the combine. You can clip that. Like I think he'll be a 4.4, 4.3. You know, I don't think he's quite worthy, but he's really fast, and he competes for the ball well for a smaller guy.
Deion Burks or Berrien Brown?
Deion Burks is at Oklahoma now. Berrien Brown, he's at Kentucky.
Berrien Brown gives me like Debo Light kind of vibes from when I watched him. I don't know, size wise, I don't know if they're quite the same, but style of play and the way that they play when they have the ball in their hands reminds me of that. Oh, and also another pass catcher, not a receiver, but I've mentioned him a million times because with all my Brock Bowers quote unquote hate. Oscar Delp, Georgia, tight end, really good.
Why do you hate Brock Bowers?
I don't hate Brock Bowers. I just have serious questions about his ability to be an effective blocker at the NFL level. And if you say that to Georgia fans, they're like, what?
Pete Prisco's big thing is he saw like it's Brock Bowers at Costco, and he looks like he's a middle-aged man who just got off work at the tire factory.
Mm-hmm.
And
that, dumb as it is, it's hard to overcome that when you watch these guys and you look at what they all look like, and then you see Brock Bowers, you're like, wait, that just looks like the dude from, I think I played around with him on Thursday afternoon.
I think Dom Lovett is a guy that I don't know if he's a first rounder, but I think he's like a top 100 type guy who maybe if he has an awesome year, it looks like he's going to be targeted heavily in Georgia's offense. And like he's kind of the guy there that they keep talking about.
Yeah, I think Georgia has 9 guys who could be top 75 picks. I mean, it is.
Well, they stole Jacoby George from Miami, and he's like just highlight catch after highlight catch. But I don't know if he's like total package.
And isn't Lil Etienne gonna be draft eligible too?
Yeah.
I mean, like he could sort up, and that's not even say like Michael Williams, Carson Beck, Naz Stackhouse, Tate Rutledge,
Radley's are in a screen.
Yeah, like Starks, Everett, Green. I mean, it is there is a reason.
Taylor Walker, maybe.
Oh,
I can't cross that guy
right?
list. Like he's a pretty freaky dude.
Yeah, Georgia, like Ohio State is going to have more probably first round picks than anybody else. But this is a big shocker. Georgia's got a lot of NFL talent, and that'll be on display this fall. It's probably why the Bulldogs are going to start the year as the number 1 team in the country. Anything, Danny? You got anything else that 2025?
Yeah, I had a player to keep an eye on. Edge rusher had a monster spring game for A&M out of Purdue.
Scorton.
Nick Scorton.
Yeah.
That dude's a beast. Keep an eye on him too, because I think Elko's really going to love having him. I think he's used a lot of him. I think he'd have a monster year in the SEC. I feel awful for Purdue because two of the guys we've mentioned here were at Purdue last year. Burks as the receiver, and now Scorton. But that dude's pretty bad, and watch out for him.
What are you going to do?
Purdue still seems pretty optimistic about their pass rush, even with what they lost.
Really?
Receivers, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
They like what they have.
Like Shamar Turner and Scorton is nasty.
That's what Tom was saying. Purdue still feels okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like they'd rather have those guys back, but they're still pretty confident in their guys that they have remained.
But that's where I was going. I was like, all right, so what? Like, think about what Mike Elko is going to be doing in terms of the different ways that he can move Shamar Turner and Nick Scorton around. And I see that brown educated man just in there going, just scheming up blitzes and different ways to go and cause problems on the field in College Station.
That opener in College Station, like after the Irish lost the first tackle taken and then their other tackle went in the second round, like that. And I think the Irish defense is nasty. I mean, they got a lot of guys to come back who could have gone pro. That's going to set offensive football back decades. I mean, they're going to rock fight each other.
Hey, can I ask? You talked about Georgia. Does Ryan Day have to win a national title, or are there going to be changes?
He can't lose to Michigan. Step one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cannot lose to Michigan, and therefore probably need to win the Big Ten. I think in the expanded playoff era, it's less. My expectation is, or I would tell fans, you can't go title or bust. We've just never seen what it's going to look like to have to roll through. I mean, this isn't the BCS, finish in the top two, go win one big heavyweight fight, and it is going to be a war of attrition by the time we get to the postseason.
Yeah, I think Ryan Day better be in the college football playoff, and it better not be as an at-large.
Yeah.
first round bye, a top 2 seed.
Although I mean, if they beat Michigan and then they lose to Oregon in the Big Ten title game, I think he'd survive that. But I think, but Chip said, beat Michigan #1 first.
And if you get a home playoff game, that might make up. They'll forget quickly about that because that atmosphere would be insane. You know what's nuts is that, you know what? Imagine if he hadn't played Georgia as close as they did, come down to a missed field goal in the playoffs 2 years ago, like where we would be, like with the Ryan Day conversation. Because at least then he showcased, and that was the year Georgia won. Like he showcased. I mean, all of this is ridiculous. He's been a great coach, and Michigan's just been outstanding. But Ryan, you were 100% legit in asking the question because it's something we've asked here before. Is like, is this really a serious possibility? And I'd say yes. If he doesn't win the Big Ten, there will be some crazy Ohio State fans that will ask, be campaignning for him to be, shown the door.
And if Marvin Harrison hadn't gotten hurt in that game, they might have beaten Georgia.
Totally.
They might have.
Yeah,
but
I think
I
they
would
probably do.
also say everything Ohio State has done this offseason just kind of solidifies the idea that you need to win this year.
Yeah, they're all in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are 100% all. I mean, because these guys are going to be gone, right? I mean, you convince all these guys to come back. They're all going to be in the 2025 draft. That's why we're talking about them right here. So I know that Ohio State recruits at a high level, and Jeremiah Smith is going to have 2 more years of eligibility after he is the best wide receiver for the team in 2024. But this is going to be a big talent drain out of the Buckeyes by the time we finish the 2024 season. Tom, you got anybody else or Bud you want to ask about? Players? Ryan, you got any players that you want to ask about?
Where are you guys on Will Howard? I didn't love Will Howard.
No, not for like top, like
not for what you're doing.
If you do a seventh round mock in like next February, he's not a guy that should be like
no hesitation from Bud.
No, there's a certain level you got to be able to throw the ball at, and that's not him.
Okay, all right. I'll put him on the check.
What about Drew Aller?
Here's the thing, Danny, and you guys tell me it's like the JJ McCarthy situation, but made at the extreme. I have no idea who Drew Aller is, other than he looks the part. Like JJ McCarthy, we can go find throws. I don't have a body of work where I can point to Drew Aller being anything other than 6'5" and 230.
Right.
There was a season opener against Purdue in the 22 season where Clifford got hurt for like a second, and Aller came in and threw a dime, and everybody went nuts. And then Clifford came back into the game, and that throw is what everyone's been salivating about
That was sort of the Anthony Richardson story when Emory Jones was the star. I think Emory Jones, right, was the starter that 3 years, whenever that was. They would bring AR in to throw 80-yard dimes, and he would go sit on the bench, or he pulled his hammy, I think, for the Alabama game. And then last year he set it on fire. I just haven't seen the set it on fire part from Drew Aller.
Fair or not, Jaden Daniels went number 2 overall. He had 2 first-round receivers on his offense. Michael Penix went in the top 10. He had 3 NFL receivers on his offense. Penn State does not have an NFL receiver on its offense right now that I'm aware of. And I think that until they get one of those, it's going to make evaluating Eller really difficult, because he did struggle with his accuracy on downfield throws, but he also didn't have many guys getting wide the hell open on downfield throws like Jaden Daniels did, where
so let me ask you
your
this,
accuracy
Tom.
can suffer a little bit when the guy's 10 yards open.
Is that a Will Levis type situation then?
I think Will Levis's arm is stronger than Aller's. I think he's bigger than Aller's just as an athlete, but I think Aller might be a better QB.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Because Will didn't have anyone to throw to either. That was one of the excuses Pete Prisco kept making.
Yeah, I mean, look, Pete just loves giant rocked up quarterbacks with cannons for arms, because it's like, if it hits, he's going to be great. But the 98% of the time it doesn't. No. Oh, well.
Drew is just like tools wise. He's not a guy you can cross off your list.
Yeah.
You have to be monitoring him. I don't think he should be like in a first round yet. Clearly.
Got it. All right. Well, we thank Ryan Wilson. Ryan Wilson is also the co-host of the With the First Pick podcast here on the CBS Sports Podcast Network. The next episode of that show will include Tom Fornelli and myself as we roll through a live mock draft scenario with Ryan and Rick. So be sure to go over and give our friends subscribe, like, review. We appreciate it in advance. And of course, Ryan Wilson, all of his NFL draft coverage, it happens 12 months out of the year. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Wilson CBS. You can follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott3. You can follow him at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Danny Cannell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See y'all.
See ya.